Section 7, Letters 31 to 35. Letter the 31st. The Chevalier d'Anceny to Cécile Volanges.
Yes, without a doubt, we shall be happy. My happiness is well assured, since I am loved by you. Yours will never end, if it is to last as long as that which you have inspired in me. What? You love me? You no longer fear to assure me of your love? The more you tell me, the better pleased you are. After reading that charming "I love you," written by your hand, I heard your sweet mouth repeat the confession. I saw fixed upon me those charming eyes, which their expression of tenderness embellished still more. I received your vow to live ever for me. Receive mine, to consecrate my whole life to your happiness. Receive it, and be sure that I will never betray it. What a happy day we passed yesterday! Why has not Madame de Merteuil secrets to tell your mamma every day? Why must it be that the idea of constraint which follows us comes to mingle with the delicious recollection which possesses me? Why can I not hold unceasingly that pretty hand which has written to me, "I love you," cover it with kisses, and avenge myself so for the refusal you have given me of a greater favour? Tell me, my Cécile, when your mamma had returned, when we were forced by her presence to have only indifferent looks for one another, when you could no longer console me with the assurance of your love, for the refusal you made to give me any proofs of it, did you have no sentiment of regret? Did you not say to yourself, "A kiss would have made him happier, and it is I who have kept this joy from him"? Promise me, my charming friend, that on the first opportunity you will be less severe. With the aid of this promise, I shall find the courage to support the vexations which circumstances have in store for us, and the cruel privations will be at least softened by my certainty that you share my regret. Adieu, my charming Cécile. The hour is at hand when I must go to your house. It would be impossible to quit you, were it not to go and see you again. Adieu, you whom I love so dearly, you whom I shall love ever more and more. Paris, 25th of August, in 17...
Letter the 32nd. Madame de Volanges to the Présidente de Tourvel. You ask me, then, Madame, to believe in the virtue of Monsieur de Valmont? I confess that I cannot bring myself to it, and that I should find it as hard a task to believe in his honour from the one fact that you relate to me, as to believe in the viciousness of a man of known probity for the sake of one error. Humanity is not perfect in any fashion, no more in the case of evil than in that of good. The criminal has his virtues, just as the honest man has his weaknesses. This truth appears to me all the more necessary to believe, in that from it is derived the necessity of indulgence towards the wicked as well as to the good, and that it safeguards the latter from pride as it does the former from discouragement. You will doubtless think that I am practising but sorrily, at this moment, the indulgence which I preach, but I see in it only a dangerous weakness, when it leads us to treat the vicious and the men of integrity alike. I will not permit myself to criticize the motives of M. de Valmont's action. I would fain believe them as laudable as the act itself. But has he any the less spent his life in involving families in trouble, scandal, and dishonour? Listen, if you will, to the voice of the wretched man he has succoured, but let not that prevent you from hearing the cries of the 100 victims whom he has sacrificed. Were he only, as you say, an instance of the danger of acquaintances, would that make him any less dangerous as an acquaintance himself? You assume him to be capable of a happy reformation? Let us go further. Suppose this miracle accomplished. Would not public opinion remain against him, and does not that suffice to regulate your conduct? God alone can absolve at the moment of repentance. He reads in men's hearts. But man can only judge of thoughts by deeds, and none amongst them, after having lost the esteem of others, has a right to complain of the necessary distrust which renders this loss so difficult to repair. Remember above all, my dear young friend, that it sometimes suffices to lose this respect merely to have the air of attaching too little value to it, and do not tax this severity with injustice, for, apart from our being obliged to believe what no one renounces this precious possession who has the right to pretend to it, he is, indeed, more liable to misdoing who is not restrained by this powerful brake. Such, nevertheless, would be the aspect under which an intimate acquaintance with Monsieur de Valmont would display you, however innocent it might be. Alarmed at the warmth with which you defend him, I hasten to anticipate the objections which I foresee you will make. You will quote Madame de Merteuil, to whom this acquaintance has been pardoned. You will ask me why I receive him at my house. You will tell me that, far from being repulsed by people of honor, he is admitted, sought after even, in what is called good society. I believe I can answer everything. To begin with, Madame de Merteuil, a most estimable person indeed, has perhaps no other fault save that of having too much confidence in her own strength. She is a skilful guide who delights in taking a carriage betwixt a mountain and a precipice, and who is only justified by success. It is right to praise her. It would be imprudent to imitate her. She herself admits it and reproaches herself for it. In proportion as she has seen more, have her principles become more severe, and I do not fear to assure you that she would think as I do. As to what concerns myself, I will not justify myself more than others. No doubt I receive Monsieur de Valmont, and he is received everywhere. It is one inconsistency the more to add to the 1,000 others which rule society. You know as well as I do how one passes one's life in remarking them, bemoaning them, and submitting to them. Monsieur de Valmont, with a great name, a great fortune, many amiable qualities, early recognized that, to obtain an empire over society, it was sufficient to employ, with equal skill, praise and ridicule. None possesses as he does this double talent. He seduces with the one, and makes himself feared with the other. People do not esteem him, but they flatter him. Such is his existence in the midst of a world which, more prudent than courageous, would rather humour than combat him. But neither Madame de Merteuil herself, nor any other woman, would for a moment think of shutting herself up in the country, almost in solitude, with such a man. It was reserved for the most virtuous, the most modest of them all, to set the example of such an inconsistency. Forgive the word, it escapes from my friendship. My lovely friend, your very virtue betrays you by the security with which it fills you. Reflect then that you will have for judges, on the one side, frivolous folk, who will not believe in a virtue the pattern of which they do not find in themselves, and on the other, the ill-natured, who will feign not to believe in it, in order to punish you for its possession. Consider that you are doing, at this moment, what certain men would not venture to risk. In fact, amongst our young men, of whom Monsieur de Valmont has only too much rendered himself the oracle, I remark the most prudent fear to seem too intimate with him. And you, are you not afraid? Ah, come back, I conjure you. If my reasons are not sufficient to convince you, yield to my friendship. It is that which makes me renew my entreaties. It is for that to justify them. You think it severe, and I trust that it may be needless. But I would rather you had to complain of its anxiety than of its neglect. Paris, 24th of August, 1700. Letter the 33rd. The Marquise de Merteuil to the Vicomte de Valmont.
The moment that you are afraid of success, my dear Vicomte, the moment that your plan is to furnish arms against yourself, and that you are less desirous to conquer than to fight, I have no more to say to you. Your conduct is a masterpiece of prudence. It would be one of folly in the contrary supposition, and, to tell the truth, I fear that you are under an illusion. What I reproach you with is not that you did not take advantage of the moment. On the one side, I do not clearly see that it had arrived. On the other, I am quite aware, although they assert the contrary, that an occasion once missed returns, whereas one never recovers a too precipitate action. But the real blunder is that you should have let yourself start a correspondence. I defy you at present to foretell whither that may lead you. Do you hope by any chance to prove to this woman that she must surrender? It appears to me that therein can only lie a truth of sentiment and not of demonstration, and that to make her admit it is a matter of acting on her feelings and not of arguing. But in what will it serve you to move her by letter, since you will not be at hand to profit by it? If your fine phrases produce the intoxication of love, do you flatter yourself that it will last so long that there will be no time left for reflection to prevent the confession of it? Reflect only of the time it takes to write a letter, of that which passes before it can be delivered, and see whether a woman, especially one with the principles of your devotee, can wish so long that which it is her endeavour to wish never. This method may succeed with children, who, when they write "I love you," do not know that they say "I yield myself." But the argumentative virtue of Madame de Tourvel seems to me to be fully aware of the value of terms. Thus, in spite of the advantage which you had over her in your conversation, she beats you in her letter. And then, do you know what happens? Merely for the sake of argument one refuses to yield. By dint of searching for good reasons, one finds, one tells them, and afterwards one clings to them, not because they are good, so much as in order not to give oneself the lie. In addition, a point which I wonder you have not yet made, there is nothing so difficult in love as to write what you do not feel. I mean, to write in a convincing manner. It is not that you do not employ the same words, but you do not arrange them in the same way. Or rather, you arrange them, and that suffices. Read over your letter. There is an order presiding over it which betrays you at each turn. I would fain believe that your présidente is too little formed to perceive it. But what matter? It has no less failed of its effect. It's the mistake of novels. The author whips himself to grow heated, and the reader remains cold. Héloïse is the only one which forms an exception, and, in spite of the talent of the author, this observation has ever made me believe that the substance of it was true. It is not the same in speaking. The habit of working the instrument gives sensibility to it. The facility of tears is added. The expression of desire in the eyes is confounded with that of tenderness. In short, the less coherent speech promotes more easily that air of trouble and confusion which is the true eloquence of love, and above all the presence of the beloved object forbids reflection, and makes us desire to be one. Believe me, Vicomte, you are asked to write no more. Take advantage of that to retrieve your mistake, and wait for an opportunity to speak. Do you know, this woman has more strength than I believed? Her defence is good, and but for the length of her letter, and the pretext which she gives you to return to the question in her phrase about gratitude, she would not have betrayed herself at all. What appears to me, again, to ensure your success, is the fact that she uses too much strength at one time. I foresee that she will exhaust it in the defence of the word, and that no more will be left her for that of the thing. I return you your 2 letters, and if you are prudent, they will be the 2 last until after the happy moment. If it were not so late, I would speak to you of the little Volanges, who is coming on quickly enough, and with whom I am greatly pleased. I believe that I shall have finished before you, and you ought to be very glad thereat. Adieu for to-day. Paris, 24th of August, 17...
Letter the 34th, the Vicomte de Valmont to the Marquise de Merteuil.
You speak with perfect truth, my fair friend, but why put yourself to so much fatigue to prove what nobody disputes? To move fast in love, 'tis better to speak than to write. That is, I believe, the whole of your letter. Why, those are the most simple elements in the art of seduction. I will only remark that you make but one exception to this principle, and that there are 2. To children who walk in this way from shyness and yield themselves from ignorance must be added the femmes beaux esprits, who let themselves be enticed therein by self-conceit, and whom vanity leads into the snare. For instance, I am quite sure that the Comtesse de B., who answered my first letter without any difficulty, had at that time no more love for me than I for her, and that she only saw an occasion for treating a subject which should be worthy of her pen. However that may be, an advocate will tell you that principles are not applicable to the question. In fact, you suppose that I have a choice between writing and speaking, which is not the case. Since the affair of the 19th, my fair barbarian, who keeps on the defensive, has shown a skill in avoiding interviews which has disconcerted my own. So much so, that if this continues, I shall be forced to occupy myself seriously with the means of regaining this advantage. For assuredly I will not be routed by her in any way. My letters even are the subject of a little war. Not content with leaving them unanswered, she refuses to receive them. For each one a fresh artifice is necessary, and it does not always succeed. You will remember by what a simple means I gave her the first. The second presented no further difficulty. She had asked me to return her letter. I gave her my own instead, without her having the least suspicion. But whether from vexation at having been caught, or from caprice, or, in short, virtue, for she will force me to believe in it, she obstinately refused the third. I hope, however, that the embarrassment into which the consequence of this refusal has happened to throw her will correct her for the future. I was not much surprised that she would not receive this letter, which I offered her quite simply. That would already have been to grant a certain favour, and I am prepared for a longer defence. After this essay, which was but an attempt made in passing, I put my letter in an envelope, and seizing the moment of the toilette, when Madame de Rosemonde and the chambermaid were present, I sent it her by my chasseur, with an order to tell her that it was the paper for which she had asked me. I had rightly guessed that she would dread the scandalous explanation which a refusal would necessitate. She took the letter, and my ambassador, who had received orders to observe her face, and who has good eyes, did but perceive a slight blush, and more embarrassment than anger. I congratulated myself then, for sure, either that she would keep this letter, or that if she wished to return it to me, it would be necessary for her to find herself alone with me, which would give me a good occasion to speak. About an hour afterwards, one of her people entered my room, and handed me, on behalf of his mistress, a packet of another shape than mine, on the envelope of which I recognised the writing so greatly longed for. I opened it in haste. It was my letter itself, the seal unbroken, merely folded in two. I suspect that her fear that I might be less scrupulous than herself on the subject of scandal had made her employ this devil's ruse. You know me. I need be at no pains to depict to you my fury. It was necessary, however, to regain one's sang-froid, and seek for fresh methods. This is the only one that I found. They send from here every morning to fetch the letters from the post, which is about 3/4 of a league away. They employ for this purpose a box with a lid almost like an alms box, of which the postmaster has one key, and Madame de Rosemonde the other. Every one puts his letters in it during the day, when it seems good to him. In the evening they are carried to the post, and in the morning those which have arrived are sent for. All the servants, strange or otherwise, perform this service. It was not the turn of my servant, but he undertook to go, under the pretext that he had business in that direction. Meantime I wrote my letter. I disguised my handwriting in the address, and I counterfeited with some skill upon the envelope the stamp of Dijon. I chose this town because I found it merrier, since I was asking for the same rights as the husband, to write also from the same place, and also because my fair had spoken all day of the desire she had to receive letters from Dijon. It seemed to me only right to procure her this pleasure. These precautions once taken, it was easy enough to add this letter to the others. I moreover succeeded, by this expedient, in being a witness of the reception, for the custom is to assemble for breakfast, and to wait for the arrival of the letters before separating. Madame de Rosemonde opened the box. "From Dijon," she said, giving the letter to Madame de Tourvel. "It is not my husband's writing," she answered in a troubled voice, hastily breaking the seal. The first glances instructed her, and her face underwent such an alteration that Madame de Rosemonde perceived it, and asked, "What is the matter with you?" I also drew near, saying, "Is this letter, then, so very dreadful?" The shy devote dared not raise her eyes. She said not a word, and to hide her embarrassment pretended to run over the epistle, which she was scarcely in a state to read. I enjoyed her confusion, and not being sorry to gird her a little, I added, "Your more tranquil air bids me hope that this letter has caused you more astonishment than pain." Anger then inspired her better than prudence could have done. "It contains," she answered, "things which offend me, and that I am astounded any one has dared to write to me." "Who has sent it?" interrupted Madame de Rosemonde. "It is not signed," answered the angry fair one, "but the letter and its author inspire me with equal contempt. You will oblige me by speaking no more of it." With that she tore up the audacious missive, put the pieces into her pocket, rose, and left the room. In spite of this anger, she has none the less had my letter, and I rely upon her curiosity to have taken care that she read it through. The detailed relation of the day would take me too far. I add to this account the first draft of my 2 letters. You will thus be as fully informed as myself. If you want to be au courant with this correspondence, you must accustom yourself to deciphering my minutes. For nothing in the world could I support the tedium of copying them. Adieu, my lovely friend. At the Château de 25th August, 17.
Letter the 35th. The Vicomte de Valmont to the Présidente de Tourvel.
I must needs obey you, madame. I must prove to you that in the midst of the faults which you are pleased to ascribe to me, there is left me at least enough delicacy not to permit myself a reproach, and enough courage to impose on myself the most grievous sacrifices. You order me to be silent and to forget. Well, I will force my love to be silent, and I will forget, if that be possible, the cruel manner in which you have met it. Doubtless my desire to please you did not bear with it the right. And more, I confess that the need I had of your indulgence was not a title to obtain it. But you look upon my love as an outrage. You forget that if it could be a wrong, you would be at once its cause and its excuse. You forget also that, accustomed to open my soul to you, even when that confidence might hurt me, it was impossible for me to conceal from you the sentiments by which I was penetrated. And that which was the result of my good faith, you consider as the fruit of my audacity. As a reward for the most tender, the most respectful, the truest love, you cast me afar from you. You speak to me lastly of your hatred. What other than myself would not complain at being so treated? I alone submit. I support it all, and murmur not. You strike, and I adore. The inconceivable power which you have over me renders you absolute mistress of my feelings, and if only my love resists you, if you cannot destroy that, it is because it is your work, and not my own. I do not ask for a love which I never flattered myself I should receive. I do not even ask for that pity for which the interest you had sometimes displayed in me might have allowed me to hope. But I admit, I think I can count on your sense of justice. You inform me, madame, that people have sought to damage me in your opinion. If you had believed the counsels of your friends, you would not even have let me approach you. Those are your expressions. Who, then, are these officious friends? No doubt those people of such severity, and of so rigid a virtue, consent to be named. No doubt they would not cover themselves in an obscurity which would confound them with vile calumniators. And I shall not be left ignorant either of their names or of their accusations. Reflect, madame, that I have the right to know both, since it is after them you judge me. One does not condemn a culprit without naming his accusers. I ask no other favour, and I promise in advance to justify myself, and to force them to retract. If I have perhaps too much despised the vain clamours of a public of which I make so little case, it is not thus with your esteem. and when I devote my life to meriting that, I shall not let it be ravished from me with impunity. It becomes all the more precious to me, in that I shall owe to it, doubtless, that request which you fear to make me, and which would give me, you say, rights to your gratitude. Ah, far from exacting it, I shall believe myself your debtor, if you procure me the occasion of being agreeable to you. Begin, then, to do me greater justice by not leaving me in ignorance of what you desire of me. If I could guess it, I would spare you the trouble of saying it. To the pleasure of seeing you, add the happiness of serving you, and I will congratulate myself on your indulgence. What then can prevent you? It is not, I hope, the fear of a refusal. I feel that I could not pardon you that. It is not only that I do not return you your letter. More than you do, I desire that it be no longer necessary to me. But accustomed as I am to believing in the gentleness of your soul, it is only in that letter that I can find you such as you would appear. When I frame the vow to render you less hard, I see there that, rather than consent, you would place yourself 100 leagues away from me. When everything in you augments and justifies my love, it is that still which repeats to me that my love is an outrage to you. And when, seeing you, that love seems to me the supreme good, I needs must read you to feel that it is but a fearful torture. You can imagine now that my greatest happiness would be to be able to return you this fatal letter. To ask me for it now would be to authorize me to believe no longer what it contains. You do not doubt, I hope, of my eagerness to return it to you. At the Château de 21st August 17.
End of section 7.